right, this is Brandon Allen here. I am the founder of the New Work Revolution. And at New Work Revolution, we have this crazy notion that people should enjoy the work environments that they work in. And the way that we create transformation is through the leadership of the organization. So what we do at New Work Revolution is create space for understanding, for insight, for leaders to expand their capacity, their empathy, their knowledge of how to create a healthy culture in their organization, whatever that looks like specifically. And then consequently, we also do some work with teams to help kind of bridge that gap between the leadership and the team to ensure that everyone's on the same page with what they want to see done culturally in the organization. And I'm a big believer that if we have better leaders in this world, that we're going to have a better world. So today I am talking to Dr. Jennifer Ward, who is one of the owners, used to be the sole owner, but now one of the owners of a company called Specialty Vet Path, who worked with us for a year in a personal one-on-one coaching program. So I wanted to talk to Jennifer and just get a feel for her experience, what insights she got from doing that, and give you some insight as to what it looks like, not only to get coaching in general, but also how we approach that. So Jennifer, thank you so much for being here. And I know we're working on branding of names. So are we Jen today or are we Jennifer? Now, I got self-conscious of that because we had that conversation.
Right. Well, I'm Jen. It's fine. I'm okay. Jen Ward. Seems to be how people have known me my whole life. Why mess with that?
It's
I'm not
simple.
trying to erase my past.
Gotcha. All right, perfect. So Jen, that's easier. So Jen, tell us a little bit about your organization, your company, and what you do.
Okay, so Specialty Vet Path is a veterinary laboratory, pathology laboratory. We do primarily clinical diagnostics, focusing on companion animal pathology. So most of the patients that we see biopsies for are dogs and cats. We work with a lot of specialists, and we have increasing focus on subspecialty pathology. So I subspecialize in dermatopathology and oncopathology, and we have gastrointestinal pathology, ocular pathology. One of my new partners is exclusively an ocular pathologist, so he's very subspecialized, Dr. Chris Riley. And we also have a really strong emphasis on teaching, not just within our organization, and something that we've always offered as sort of a side menu for our existing clients, but something that we're really trying to expand on. Always had visions of doing that more, and that's one of the ways that we've been able to grow over the last year, is to really bring some of those ideas about how to expand our reach and our impact through some professional teaching programs that we've been working on developing. So we've got our teaching, our diagnostics, and then we also have a collaborative research service that's growing. So those are the three areas that we work. We do a lot of our work in the past has been doing just the histology for other researchers, but we have another pathologist coming on to really spearhead the collaborative side, where one of our pathologists does the interpretation for the research studies in their areas of expertise.
Nice. All right. Very cool. And I know you guys have really expanded and gotten into these new areas more recently, right? And so you got into coaching. What got you into coaching to begin with? What was it that you decided, hey, I want to look into coaching. I want to get some coaching support for myself. And the reason why I asked that is I think there's a lot of people I know who are kind of on the fence about coaching. They're kind of like, I don't know if I should do that. Maybe they've heard some horror stories about what's happened to other people in coaching. But what was the thing that kind of compelled you to look more seriously at that?
Well, I guess it was a combination of things. I was generally open to the idea once I heard about it. It wasn't something that I had heard of previously, but when I learned that there was such a thing as a business coach and an executive coach, having played sports throughout my life and have some really good coaches and some really bad coaches as well, but the good coaches had a huge influence on me, and not just on my ability to get better at the sport that I wanted to play, but sort of more generally in how I approached learning and practicing and growing. And so I was intrigued by that idea, but I also didn't pursue it. It was one of those things I thought, oh, well, when my business is further along, when I've made more money, when I can afford that. And then I went through a period of time where we had a bunch of things happen at the same time that were quite bad and hard in my business. And I was really struggling And I connected initially with Brandon through, I just found my way to Wealth Factory, and Brandon was at that time working with that business. And I went to a workshop that they were offering on more just some business, the finance side, which for sure I needed some help with that too. But when I heard Brandon talking at that workshop, everything that he said really resonated for me about and things that, for instance, one of my big struggles was, how do I grow my business when I can't manage these people? People are just very unmanageable. So do I. And my husband and I had started the business together, and he thought that it would just be better if we retreated back into our basement where we started it originally, just two of us, no employees. It'd be simple again. We wouldn't have to deal with these impossible employee problems. And I wanted to grow and like grow a lot and really scale the business and the model that was very different from how pathology is practiced and delivered in general in the veterinary space. And I wanted to change the world. That's why I started my business. So I wasn't going back to the basement. So I wanted help. And Brandon's approach really resonated with me and caused me to really look at myself and, not just think, oh, that these people are such a problem. It's like, what is my problem? How am I showing up as a leader, and how can I improve my side of things so that I can then help my employees either help the ones that I have be the best they can be, or pick better if that needs to be, and help the ones that don't fit move on gracefully rather than have it be any kind of toxic explosion. So those were what I was originally looking to for coaching.
Yeah.
Kind of things.
So I think people can really resonate with this, right? That, I've got a team and things don't always go as well in the team setting as I want them to. And the thing that's hard about management is that people are messy and they're unpredictable, and they do things that we never thought that was possible. And we can't believe that certain people would show up certain ways. And then we become disillusioned by people. And I think that's very common. And so I love that you brought that piece up, because I think a lot of times people wrestle with that. Now, as you've started to grow in your understanding of team dynamics, of maybe even raising your standards of what you'll tolerate or expect at work, what have you noticed as a result of just that piece alone?
I've noticed that people actually, for the most part, and the ones that you want to grow in your organization, they respond really positively to having standards and having them clearly communicated and then like they respond way better to being held accountable than to not being held accountable. It's like they want that, and you think, oh, well, why are people not just holding themselves accountable then? But it doesn't necessarily work that way. And sort of we had to work to transition our culture from, well, we have these standards that we say are really important, but if people violate them, nothing is ever said to them. And then that's really disillusioning to the people who are upholding the standards, and they start to become less happy, less optimistic, less productive, less supportive employees. And there's just this whole cycle. And so we did find that, to our surprise, people actually want to be told when they're not doing something right, and to be kind of, not in a negative way, but they do. They want to know if they're doing a good job, and they want consistency, which we lacked. And if you can consistently communicate that, and it's still a work in progress, but it's considerably better than it was, where people know what they're supposed to do, and then somebody actually says, hey, you're not doing what you're supposed to do if they're not. And everybody on the team just kind of raises up a level of energy when work like that.
Yeah. And for you, as we talk about the team dynamic and holding people accountable specifically, that wasn't necessarily something that came natural to you, right? Confrontation, holding people accountable. It wasn't like you were like, oh yeah, I'm already doing this really well, so I'll do more of it, right? Like this was something that was not in your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what helped you to bridge that gap?
Well, is it a cop-out to just say coaching? Brandon helped me.
It's not a complete cop-out, but I want to know if you had any kind of mental pathway changes, some shifts in your mentality about that. Because I think for a lot of people, it's scary. And I think a lot of people know that confrontation is the right thing, but yet we still don't engage in it. That's why, I always bristle when people say, well, if I knew what to do, I would do it. Well, we know we should confront bad behavior, but we don't do it, right? So
Right.
I'm just wondering if there was something in particular that you remember that helped you to kind of make that leap.
I think it was a combination of things. It was becoming more confident, standing in the shoes of the owner and the boss, and not being as concerned about what people were going to think and if their feelings were going to be hurt. And it was also recognizing that just because I had done it badly in the past didn't mean that I was always going to do it badly, and that I needed to practice, because I had, and that was one of the other things, was like I knew I needed to do it, so I tried it, but I tended, it was quite, the style was to not confront, and then be really like, okay, I have to, and I built it up into this bigger thing, partly because I hadn't done it and partly because I didn't like to and I didn't feel comfortable, and so I was really abrupt and mean and scary, and it went badly. And then I'm like, see, I'm bad at that, so I shouldn't do that. So just breaking that cycle and realizing that I wasn't supposed to just be good at it naturally, or else I couldn't do it. Just like anything that you want to learn how to do, you think about it in advance, try to be in the right state of mind. Ideally, don't let things go for a long time. If you have done so, acknowledge that up front, sort of own your part in it. And those were all things that came through various conversations in coaching around mindset and how I'm showing up and what kind of things are getting in my way and keeping me from doing what I know I should be doing, and yet I'm not.
Gotcha. All right. I love that. Okay. So as you've kind of bridged this gap with people and utilized people, and obviously your team has expanded over the years, what have been some of your biggest insights in the process of coaching that has been most helpful to you?
I think the biggest insight for me is that I am potentially my own biggest obstacle, and therefore potentially my own biggest advocate, and I can get myself out of my way, and all the things that I want to accomplish, I don't have that sense of, not that it can't creep in now and then, but like I really don't feel like an imposter like I used to. I mean, I used to be the epitome of imposter syndrome, and the voices in my head were very different from what they are now. So I guess the biggest insight is that I can do anything I want. I mean, it sounds crazy, but the power is within. It wasn't something I was able to just bring out on my own, but I am a pretty powerful, capable person.
I love that. Man, that's so powerful, right? Doesn't that feel good to say it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. And the reality that a lot of people miss in performance is they think that there's something outside of them, that if they just had that thing, it would unlock all the doors for them in life and success in different areas. But in reality, everything that they need is already inside. They just need to figure out how to access that, what's getting in the way of seeing it, and then be able to use that. So I think that's really powerful. So as you've had this insight that, hey, I can do anything, and that, where I may get in my way at times, I also know how to get out of my own way as well. What have been the biggest byproducts, or what's the fruit of that for you, Ben?
Well, I guess it manifests both in my business and in my personal life. So in the business, being able to realize a number of the, not just growth goals, but like the unique factors of our business that I wanted to have a fellowship program. And then, there was just like, well, who might have a fellowship program? All of those things that would come up. And that doesn't even give me pause anymore. It's more like, okay, so we've got one fellow almost done and 2 more starting. What's the right schedule for how many fellowships we should have, and what other types of fellowships do we want to offer? Do we have the resources for all of them, or do we need to bring in new people? I mean, it's just a really different way of thinking about something, as opposed to, gosh, I wish nobody's doing it and somebody should, but really, I don't know if I'm the one to do it. Yeah, I'm the one to do it. We are here at Especially About Path.
Nice.
So that's a huge one. And that's a big part of how we're going to grow our service as well, because ideally, especially early on, as we're starting to train fellows, we're looking for people that we hope will be a good long-term cultural fit, that will stay and help us grow after we've finished that training. And that is how it's working with our first fellow. And we also know going into it, that the two that are starting in September are very much hoping that this is where they land for the rest of their career at this point, is how they see it. So that's a nice thing to have, to be attracting the caliber of people that we want and having them view the opportunity as in that way.
Yeah, I love that shift from, boy, it would be nice if we could do this, I don't know if we can, to how do we do this better? How do we do it more efficiently? And you totally get past that barrier of, I don't even know this is possible, to now we're doing it. Now we're looking at how do we do it more effectively in the future? And what a great sequence of events to have occur, right, in your business and in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty cool.
I love that. So how has some of this stuff impacted your team? What things have you seen with your team as you've changed and developed? How have you seen your team change and develop?
Well, let's see. I think one of the things is there's two sides of it, I guess, because one, I feel like we've created a sense for people that there is somewhere to go as far as like a career advancement within, especially Vet Path, rather than whatever your position is, that's really what it's going to be unless you leave and go somewhere else. And so that has helped people think about their position really differently, and I think how they show up and setting goals with the company and sitting down with individual employees and talking about their goals and identifying goals that sort of complement our goals that we can work on together. It engages people more. I mean, I think we've tended to have pretty engaged people, at least initially in general, because they come in here really passionate about animals and medicine and veterinary medicine, but then that can kind of erode away if the job doesn't feel like it's a place where they have opportunity for growth, where it may not be true, but they start to feel unappreciated. There are just all these things that happen if you're not being really intentional in how you support your people. And also, it's a reality of a very small business. You don't have that ladder for people to climb with their career. So now we do, and it energizes people, I think.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. You guys have provided that opportunity and given people some upward mobility. And that is a tough conversation to have with someone where you say, yeah, this job you've been hired into, this is your future for the next 30 years, right? So it's hard for people to get excited about that. And so it's good to be able to provide other places to go for people if the opportunity arises for those people. So besides one-on-one coaching, which we've talked about, that you have specifically participated in other things that we have done. So I want to talk about a couple of those things. One of them being workshops. So we do a workshop series called the Strategic Business Forum Workshop Series. We've actually done this workshop series for 15 years, which is crazy to say. Because of COVID, we've done some in-person meetings, but we've been doing a lot of virtual stuff recently. But you guys have been to the workshops. You've brought other people on your team to workshops. So talk a little bit about the workshop experience. What's that been like for you?
It's been fantastic. I love the workshops. I am sad that they're not happening in the regular cycle that they were before COVID, because as hard as it was to take that time to break away, once we did, we were away. And so it was different from a virtual experience. I mean, there's also the in-person part of it is obviously very different, but that was a really key element. It's like when we got there, we were just completely in it. That's what we were doing. Mm-hmm. And there's just they're fire hose type workshops, but in a good way. Like, it's not just all this information that is like you just need to memorize a bunch of facts. It's like thought-provoking, really opening up your mind to think about and look at yourself and how you're doing whatever aspect of your business it is that's the focus of that workshop. And then opportunity to hear from other people in other businesses, other business owners who are in a completely different industry, but they're having the same problem you're having. And maybe they've got some ideas about a solution that either would work for you or sparks an idea about how you could do something differently. There's a lot of cross-pollination that goes on, a lot of just kind of mind expansion. I love them.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I know you guys have been to quite a few, and so thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. So you've also done some on-site meetings with me personally. I've come to the Seattle area and worked with, whether it be future partners, team members, members. Talk about that experience. What's that like?
Well, it's great.
I was hoping you would say that. I'm prefacing that right up front.
It really is. It's, so the first time we did a hybrid thing where first you talked to our whole team on site, and we kind of dove into some of the bigger obstacles that we were encountering as a group, and it just kind of right there in real time got us in essentially a group coaching situation where we worked on coming up with solutions to the problems and ideas about better ways that we could work together to have a different outcome from what we'd been having. And so it was both helpful in that, like, it was actually working on a real problem, and then we could go forth and take that information and work on it and build on it. But it was also really, the staff enjoyed it. Like, all of my people really felt invested in. Like, here we brought this person out and we carved out this time where we put all the work aside, and they were part of it. Everybody was part of it. It wasn't just like, oh, okay, only these 2 managers are going to go to Salt Lake City with me. It was everybody. And so it was, even though it wasn't like technically designed to be a team building experience, and we didn't fall into each other's arms or anything like that, it was very team building. And then we did the same thing. Then we went and had a bunch of our clients that we invited. And I'm surprised that none of those clients have ended up wanting to talk to you about coaching, because I still hear from people about how great that was and how much they enjoyed it, and how just many kernels of like useful information that they still pull out and think about every now and then. Like, well, Brandon said this. It's just like, so I'm like, call him up. You can get more than that. You can get more than an evening. But it was cool. And I think part of why I love working with Brandon and why I like bringing him and doing these kind of things is that Brandon's funny. Brandon is not just a really wise coach and has a good, asks really good questions and gets people thinking and brings people out, and he'll put you on the spot and it'll be awkward, but he won't leave you out hanging out for too long. But he's funny, and so it really, there's this element of entertainment to the learning that I like.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. So kind of getting into a couple final things here as we wrap up. And I love kind of bringing that up, because I think for a lot of people, and here's a question I have about on-site in particular, because I think what sometimes business owners run into is they're like, why should I bring someone else in? Like, I can facilitate my own quarterly meeting. I can do my own annual meeting, right? Like, I can do all those things, but why bring someone else out? Because I think it's a fair question to ask, like, hey, is that really worth it? So what about that has been worth it for you? What's been the difference between, you doing your own meeting and having someone come out and facilitate that with you?
I think there's 2 things that really stand out. One of them is that sometimes it's really helpful for people to hear, even if it's just what I would be saying, they hear it from somebody else. And rather than be annoyed by that, I'm just going to be like, it's just a reality. Sometimes maybe he says it better, or maybe, who cares, whatever. It works better. Things finally click. And so that's great. And then another part of it is I get to be part of what's going on as a participant, rather than the one who's leading it and having to think of the questions to ask. And so that's great for me. And it's also great for my team to see me in that capacity. And, I just think it's a really good dynamic to create. It's like, do it for every quarterly meeting, but once a year is my goal. I think it's a good amount of, a good regular rhythm to have.
Yeah. All right. So the last question is around fear. We get scared about transformation, and the worry and change is always, I know what I do now, and I know what's good about it. I know what's not so good. What I don't know is if I change in the future, how's that going to look? There's probably going to be some good things about that as well. And there may be some things about it that bring up new challenges, things that I hadn't realized before or dealt with before that now I'm dealing with. So as you push past your own fear in this process, what's been the benefit to you on getting to the other side of that fear and really growing and changing and shifting yourself?
Well, for one part, getting the fear is the biggest limiter. So I wasn't getting where I wanted to go because of the fear. And the fear for me, it wasn't even simply afraid. It's more complicated than being afraid of failing. It was almost more terrifying to be afraid of succeeding. And so just getting past that and being liberated and realizing that it might not go the way I want it to, but I have the skills to adjust and learn from that. I've been doing that. And the biggest thing that's been holding me back is just my fear of what might happen, but I've not been liking what's been happening as a result. So what do I have to lose? And so it's liberating to just be like, I can even still be scared, but not held back by that. Just recognize it, see it. Okay, there it is. And I'm going to do it anyway. And it feels good.
Nice. I love that. So how does coaching help support you through that?
How can I count the ways? Just having someone that I can check in with regularly and talk through. Sometimes there are things that are stopping me that I don't even necessarily recognize where it's coming from. And working with Brandon, a lot of it is the questions that he asks that help bring out the understanding and help expose some of those ways of thinking that are limiting. And it's very powerful. It's not like, oh, coaching is, he says, do it this way and then go over here and then, cut left. It's way more about just helping me recognize what's limiting me and also recognize how powerful I am and sort of bridge the gap between what I think I can do in my little ego limiting, keep me safe, shut me down brain, and what I can do if I just take the chains off, basically. Mm-hmm. Go for it.
Yeah.
And that's like it, every session is different. It depends, what I've brought. And also sometimes Brandon will see something either in something I say or something that was almost like an aside that I mentioned in my little pre-coaching form. It's like, I want to dig more into that. So I think just experience and knowledge that you bring into a coaching session and the knowledge and experience that's buried inside of the person who is there coaching with you, you create change.
Awesome. I love that, man. That's I don't even know if I could describe that better myself. So I love that. I love that. That's really good. That's really good. I'm going to save that. I'm going to think about that. I'm going to use that in the future. So I'm going to plagiarize your work.
This is for you. This is all.
There you go. All right. So Jen, I really appreciate you taking the time. Is there anything else that you want to say about the experience of coaching with us, with me, that we didn't cover that you feel like is important before we wrap up?
I think I would just want to say to people who are thinking about it, to just stop thinking about it and give it a try, and at least have a conversation about what it would look like, because it might be very different from what you think it is. And I've talked to people who are in other types of coaching. I'm sure there's many good coaches out there, but I know some people who have been in coaching and then they describe what happens and what they do and how, and I'm just like, ooh, well, no wonder it doesn't seem like you're getting anywhere. So I definitely would strongly encourage it for anybody who wants to grow and become more fully in your power and really accomplish your goals. And if you've got a purpose in your business that you really are passionate about and you want to take it to another level, get coaching. Work with Brandon.
Yeah. All right. I love that. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So Jen, thank you so much for taking some time and sharing your experience. I know you're a busy person, so I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Very welcome. And thank you. And I will talk to you again soon.
Okay, so let me say a couple things as we wrap up here. If you're looking at if you're thinking about coaching, there's some things that we do that I think are really important in coaching. Number one, coaching is about you. Good coaching is about the individual who's being coached. As a coach, I'm just a conduit to what their potential is, to where they want to go, and helping to get rid of obstacles and help them overcome certain things that help them get closer to where they want to be. And I think sometimes in coaching, it's easy for a coach to make it about them and what they know and dazzling people with their knowledge and expertise. But that's not what we do here. We look to create safe environments where people can discover what it is that they need to discover for themselves that's going to honor who they are as a person and the direction that they want to go in that process. So if you're thinking about that and you think, hey, this sounds pretty good, I want to check it out. One of the interesting things that we do to enroll people in coaching, we don't use a sales team. We don't have scripts. We actually coach you. So if you reach out to me and you say, hey, I want to talk to you, I'm going to coach you for nothing. Now, the nothing part is you're gonna spend your time. And my goal is that it's gonna be so damn valuable at the end of that you're gonna think, boy, I'd like to do this again. And then we can have a conversation about what that looks like. So go to newworkrevolution.com and check that out. You can get a hold of us through that. You can subscribe to our newsletter. So if you're really kind of still thinking, man, I'm kicking the tires, I'm not really sure, subscribe to our newsletter. We put out a newsletter once a week. We also promote different things that are free, like master classes, things like that, promote workshops that are really low barrier to entry type of services that we offer that just make it really easy to kind of dip your toe in the water and see, how is this experience really, and what am I going to experience for myself? So there's a lot of different ways that you can do that, but go to newworkrevolution.com. Get subscribed to the newsletter, reach out to me. I would be happy to chat with you if you feel like that's beneficial. So that's our experience at New Work Revolution. That's what we want to do. We want to transform leaders because, again, I'm a big believer that if we have better leaders in this world, we have a better world. And I don't know about you, but I would like to live in a better world. So thanks again to Jen for being here. And I hope to hear from you if you're watching this video. So take care.